Attorney Gloria Allred, and with me is Linda Brown, and also Lise Lott Lublin. And I'll be making a statement, and then Linda will be making her statement, and then Lise will be making her statement. Then I'll be taking some questions, and we will provide you copies of their statements at the end of the news conference. We also have some photos which we will show you. I'm here today with two more women who allege that they were victims of Bill Cosby. Both women were models and both met him through their modeling agencies. Like all of the other women who came forward, they thought that they could trust Bill Cosby. Unfortunately for them, they have reason to believe that their trust was betrayed. Both believed that they were drugged, and one believes that she became the victim of sexual violence by Bill Cosby. The Center for Disease Control defines sexual violence as, quote, a sexual act that is committed or attempted by another person without freely given consent of the victim or against someone who is unable to consent or refuse. It includes forced or alcohol drug facilitated penetration of a victim, forced or alcohol drug facilitated incidents in which the victim was made to penetrate a perpetrator or someone else, non-physically pressured unwanted penetration, intentional sexual touching, or non-contact acts of a sexual nature. Sexual violence can also occur when a perpetrator forces or coerces a victim to engage in sexual acts with a third party. That did not occur here. Sexual violence involves a lack of freely given consent, as well as situations in which the victim is unable to consent or refuse. That's a quote. Both women have suffered a long-lasting impact from what Cosby did to them. While these and other alleged victims are suffering, Bill Cosby continues to try to complete what he calls his, quote, far from finished, end quote, tour by performing at venues in many different states. However, many members of the public are angry, and they're refusing to buy tickets, or they're seeking refunds if they've already purchased them. They're signing petitions online asking the venues to cancel Mr. Cosby's show, or they're organizing protests outside of the venues where he's scheduled to perform. I led a protest in Denver recently, and last week I was in touch with protesters in Boston before Cosby suddenly canceled his appearance there. Those protesters felt so strongly that they protested in freezing weather in the snow, even after his shows were canceled last Sunday. Tonight, Bill Cosby was scheduled to perform in Bakersfield, California, but that appearance was, quote, postponed, end quote. And this weekend's scheduled Bill Cosby tour shows in Reno, Nevada, and Tucson, Arizona were also canceled. Many people felt that watching Bill Cosby perform on Valentine's Day was a truly revolting thought. Other venues such as Pittsburgh have canceled as well, but some venues are still selling tickets. It appears that Bill Cosby thinks that he is far from finished, but he should know that we are also far from finished with him. I'm appalled and disgusted by what so many women have told me about Bill Cosby. Mr. Cosby should allow these alleged victims to have their day in court with him, but he refuses to do so. The public should ask why Mr. Cosby prefers to battle it out in the court of public opinion, rather than placing his confidence in a judge and a jury, as the alleged victims that I represent are willing to do. Mr. Cosby thinks that this will soon be over, and that no more women will come forward. He is very wrong. I still have many women who have not yet come forward, but who are willing to do so in the future. They still want justice and accountability from Bill Cosby, but to date, they are still denied it. Justice is long overdue for these brave women, and they will be silent no more. And now, I would like to present Linda Brown. Linda, we're going to change seats. I think you'll sit here, okay? Linda will tell you about herself, and we also have a TV commercial that she was in, which we will show you at the end. And we also have modeling photos.
I was 21 years old when I met Bill Cosby. I had begun to model when I was 19 years old and enjoyed a very successful modeling career. I was doing fashion shows, and I was a magazine cover girl, appeared on television shows, and in fact I was the first model in North America to appear on television in a bra, in the Wonder Bra commercial in 1969, which is still on YouTube. I was born in Canada and was living there in 1969 when Bill Cosby was performing there. My agent, Judy Welch, knew Bill Cosby and asked if I would like to have dinner with Bill Cosby after his show. I agreed because the Bill Cosby I had seen on television and in films seemed like a very nice and interesting guy. Mr. Cosby had left the ticket to his show at the box office for me, and I was seated in the front row. After the show, one of his entourage came to my seat to take me to the limo where Mr. Cosby joined me with two members of his entourage who appeared to me to be his bodyguards. At dinner, Mr. Cosby showed everyone photos of his wife and children while he was sitting there smoking cigars. David Mann, who was the co-owner of the restaurant and a well-known Toronto football player, was there with us. After dinner, we got in the back of the limo, and he was taking me home, but he said he needed to stop for a few minutes to see a friend. We went in briefly to his friend's apartment and said hello to his friend and then left. His friend lived very close to my home, so I asked to be dropped off at home. Mr. Cosby responded that he wanted to give me a gift, and he wanted to get it from his hotel room for me before I went home. He asked me to go up to his room so that he could give me the gift and that it would just take a few minutes. Because I trusted Mr. Cosby, and also because I knew that his two male bodyguards were waiting in the car, I never suspected anything would even happen to me. When we arrived at Mr. Cosby's suite, he handed me a record album. He then said, "Do you mind waiting while I make a quick phone call?" He then went into the other room, and he got me a soft drink, and then said he needed to make a call and be right back. So I took a sip and blacked out. But when I awakened, I was naked in the bed beside him. I had no idea how my clothes came off, or how or why I was in his bed. I was shocked and had no clue as to how I got there or why Mr. Cosby was beside me under the covers. I couldn't move or speak. I felt paralyzed. He flipped me over and sexually assaulted me. I felt like a rag doll and like a real-life blow-up doll for him. I was in a stupor. Later, after he finished, and when I was finally able to, I got up and got dressed. I got out of there as soon as I could, and I felt dirty, ashamed, and embarrassed. This horrible experience has had a long-lasting impact on me. As a result, I find it very hard to trust men. I felt that Mr. Cosby deceived me into thinking that he was a nice and trustworthy person. Now I feel that he's deceiving the public into thinking that he's an honorable man who would never do what he did to me and so many other alleged victims. Sorry. I chose to speak out today because I want people to know who Mr. Bill Cosby really is. He's a Jekyll and Hyde personality, and if you trust him, then you've been fooled by him too. I'm sorry.
copies with his spelling. Yeah.
Get a tissue. You weren't supposed to get me all worked out.
I'm so sorry.
I met Mr. Cosby in 1989 when I was 23 years old through my modeling agency. By our third meeting, I was alone with him in the Elvis Suite at the Hilton Hotel in Las Vegas. He asked me to perform an improvisation so that he could evaluate my acting skills, I assumed. As I attempted to do what he asked, he fixed a shot of alcohol, approximately 1.5 ounces, and told me to drink it. He said it would relax me. I told him I didn't drink, but he insisted, so I drank it. I trusted him because of who he was and how well he was known and respected around the world. The taste was horrible and unfamiliar to me because I was not a drinker. He went back to the bar and fixed a second drink and handed it to me. Again, he insisted, and I drank the second drink. Within minutes, I became dizzy and disoriented. He sat on the armrest of the couch and called me over to have a seat. I walked over to the end of the table and began to sit down. I asked myself, what does this have to do with acting? Then I sat on the end table with my back to his groin, and he slid forward so that his legs were on each side of my arms. I felt uncomfortable, and I thought to myself, should I leave my arms to my side, or should I lift them up and put them on top of his thighs? As I sat with my thoughts, he began to stroke my hair back from my forehead in a petting motion. He was talking, but I don't recall what he was saying. This was the last moment of consciousness I remember until I had flashes of unfamiliar areas of the hotel and the suite. I saw several doors that I believed led to bedrooms in the suite. I remembered the color of the walls. I can recall a floodlight that was on in a small cubby area. My next memory was waking up at home. And for me, it felt like several days had passed by. I did not remember driving myself home, yet my car was in the driveway, and I was safe at home. I spoke to my mother about the situation, and we believed that I must have had some kind of reaction to the alcohol. I never experienced a blackout, and I did not understand why I would have a blackout. Bill Cosby made me a victim, but every victim that Bill Cosby assaulted, who has been called a whore and a liar, has helped me to become a survivor. Bill Cosby appears to think that rape is a joke. Well, let me tell you something, Bill. I'm not laughing. I'm furious, and I've decided to fight for my rights and the rights of every man, woman, and child who have been victimized by a sexual crime. I've contacted every senator and assembly person from the state of Nevada, and I will continue to rally every victim of sexual assault, every rape crisis center, and every supporter who believes in the right to have an offender tried in court. Regardless of the time limit that it takes for a victim to become a survivor, I will do everything in my power to change the law that protects criminals and re-victimizes the innocent. I am currently working with Assemblywoman Irene Bustamante Adams to abolish the statute of limitations for sexual assault and rape. The bill to abolish the statute has been submitted and will be voted on this legislative session in Nevada in 2015. Every victim that wants to have a voice heard can join me in Carson City to plead our case in front of the state legislature. You can sign our petition at www.change.org and type in Nevada sexual assault in the search engine or follow us on Twitter, Stop the Clock 2015.